Yeah, welcome to Academy of Tone. Today we have a very special episode about a history, the rise and fall of a famous German boutique amp brand named Kitty Hawk. Maybe some of you guys know the brand, maybe you have never heard of the brand, but it's time to tell a story which is very, very exciting. In this episode, I have done two interviews with two people that are very familiar with the brand. Well, one of the former men that did the company, Gundolf Roy, who was running the company with his brother. And he told me the whole story from the beginning to the end. Very, very exciting for me, first as a brand myself with BluGuitar, but second also from the perspective of the time when this was happening. In the 1980s was the years of Kitty Hawk, when Kitty Hawk was famous, and they kind of entered the market with boutique American amps. They started as a reseller or import of actually Dumble amps. And the Dumble amps were, of course, boutique amps, but not even having the name as Mesa Boogie. So in these days, myself, being a teenager, tried to find a good amp. And I didn't know about Dumble back in the days, and I didn't know about Kitty Hawk. So the brand has been around, but the reputation was not built up then. And for me, it's really interesting to look at the whole thing from a retrospective, to see how things evolve from a certain point that was needed back in the days. For instance, when I heard that there was a demand of boutique amps and there was no supply, it was reminding me of the story of Marshall. When Jim Marshall was importing Fender amps in the 60s, not getting the volume that he could have sold in his shop, he started to copy the Fender Bassman, making a JDM 45. And that became the new original, even for the whole genre of rock music. So, what was happening with Kitty Hawk? Kitty Hawk, they also imported amps, and the biggest brand at the time was probably Mesa Boogie. So me, myself, ended up buying a Mesa Boogie because that I was told to be the best amp at the time. But actually, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And later I found out that I wasn't even the Mesa guy at all, which is fair enough. But anyway, the Roy brothers had a music store and brought some of these American Dumble amps. And at that time, nobody in Germany, especially in Germany, knew who Howard Dumble was. There were a few people maybe using Dumble amps, but Robin Ford and David Lindley, but hey, not the real big names. And so what happened is they had a few amps and they started small. they gave the amps into a few shops in Germany so people could buy Dumble amps. And they were quite expensive, but not crazy expensive like today, because the whole story was not told and the big value increase was yet to come. So they were trying to sell these amps into a few stores, and a few people might have seen them. I didn't have seen those amps back in the days because I was probably living in the wrong area. So my music stores didn't have any Kitty Hawk amps at that time. We are talking early 80s. Yeah, but my dear friend Gregor Hilden, who will be in this episode too, he was exposed to some Kitty Hawk amps at that time, and he actually bought one and used it for almost 20 years. until he changed back for, or maybe not back, but until he changed for classic vintage Fender amps from the late 60s. So I found it interesting that the Roy brothers had that connection to Dumble, receiving some of the stuff, and from what I heard is like sometimes Dumble was not shipping enough. Same story like Jim Marshall. Sometimes the amps were not completed. No housing, no speakers. Of course, that makes sense, saving heavy weight and things. And then they kind of completed the amps so they could really sell them as complete amps. You know, combos were the big thing of the day. And looking back, they were pretty heavy. 30 kilograms was a normal thing. Nobody today would have a 30 kilogram combo anymore. These days are luckily gone, but back in the days, we did everything to have a great sound, including myself. So I had my Mesa Boogie with an Electro Voice 12L speaker and, you know, all the big transformers and the tubes and the massive, very well built Mesa Boogie chassis, and was lugging around this combo, which was okay for a teenager, young and strong, but no fun when you get older. On the other hand, the Roy brothers made the experience that after they start to sell a few of those amps, they couldn't get any more supplies. So over the time, they kind of, well, finished the amps themselves and then ended up building the whole amp themselves. Again, similar Marshall story. And then from there on, they started to have their own models. And I have a Junior here, which is one of the early Kitty Hawk phase amps. The Junior is two 606 amps built in spring reverb. And as we can hear, it's a bit hum on the tank, which is it's a classic. Because yeah, there is a transformer and the Acoutronic spring is, well, pretty close to the transformer, so the pickups pick up the hum of the transformer as well. So it is what you get. But the interesting thing about this amp here is it has a very nice, well, woody, round and musical blues tone. And I'm using the overdrive at the moment because that's maybe the most exciting channel on this amp. And the Junior is not 100% the Dumble. Gregor Hilden talks about the standard later, and that's closer to a Dumble. But listen to this, it's a very nice amp. Yeah, great amp. I have dialed in something into the vintage channel of the Amp 1, which sounds like this. Okay, I know it's not exactly the same, but it goes into the same direction. Let's A-B something so we can hear how close I am. And one. And the Kitty Hawk. Oh, I need a bit more reverb. And one. Kitty Hawk again. There's something nice about that reverb too. I mean, real tank, but it's a lush spring reverb, which has some qualities. It kind of separates nicely from the guitar signal. And of course the amp one is not having any spring and it has no hum. So, yeah, to let you guys know what I have done tone-wise to get close, I use the one control to get the gain on minimum, and I use the boost on set to 1 o'clock. Is it 1 o'clock? Yeah, it's pretty much 1 o'clock. And the rest is nothing special, of course, is the reverb, but I boosted the mids up to 10 and I reduced the bass also. Treble is on 5. I guess that's pretty similar. The boost gives me a slightly different feel versus more gain from the amp. Listen to boost on. I just like the way I have so much sustain without harsh overdrive. Without the boost. Okay, it's not enough gain. If I would use the gain from like the amp one, also nice. But to me that's already going too much into the Marshall-esque territory, more like my JDM 45. Yeah, but it's great again. I think it's getting too fat in a way, so I reduce this gain to 0 or to minimum and use a touch of that boost instead. To me, maybe a bit more Fender-esque. If you have other style of boosts, maybe something like an Emerald Prince EP booster, something should be very neutral, but Fender-esque, or a Timmy, something like that, that might be even closer. But anyway, this is how close we get without any extra devices. That's besides the one control if you don't have one, or the remote one, or via MIDI. Just controlling what the amp one itself has to offer. So for me, the amp one is doing the trick. Back to the hummy Kitty Hawk. to admit that's a very nice sound, but amp 1 is also pretty cool and not too far from it, pretty close. Yeah, so what is happening with that brand? I found it exciting. Besides having killer products like this one, I mean, this is really a boutique sound. Most of today's very high-priced, sought-after boutique amps, whatever, Two Rocks, Bad Cats, this isn't any worse, or this is at the same level. It's, or maybe even better. I don't know. It's just a matter of taste. But these, they have character. They have that character. If you're looking for a real good traditional blues jazz sound, it's nothing. It's an American sound. Kitty Hawk actually changed their direction later on in their company history, building more British sounding amps and having amps like Supreme that has ultra versatile channel switching and many options. They have invention on power amp tubes. They have built very well powerful all tube power amps and rack gear, which was kind of the flavor of the day back in the late 80s. So they changed direction from the bluesy old school approach to a back then more modern high-tech approach, building switching systems, fantastic switching systems. And they even had like very famous users like the Scorpions and a lot of other bands. Since Bob Bradshaw in the US was having their clientele, so to speak, and the guys that work with him. But there was a lack of companies doing that kind of thing. And myself entered that scene also in the early 90s when I joined Hughes and Kettner. And this was already the days, these were the days when Kitty Hawk already was on that second generation of their products, being more British, being more tech-driven, being, I would say, rather German in a way. And that's the same spirit that Hughes and Kettner was having at the very early days. This kind of, the Hughes and Kettner slogan was technology of tone. So the word technology was first very important. My slogan with BluGuitar is tone innovation. So tone comes first, which kind of refers to the old and the new. And then innovation comes second, like let's make a good tone, more usable, more user-friendly, lightweight products, you know, not 30 kilograms of heavy tube amps, 1.2 kilograms, no hum, modern products, you know, with like universal power versus very special transformers and a lot of old school components which are not so easy to handle for both the manufacturer and the end user. Yeah, and I was fascinated about hearing the whole story from the very beginning to the very end of a company that had always great products. I mean, even if you don't like the early amps and because you were not into the blues kind of music and you rather played that more modern amps from Kitty Hawk or British sounding amps or vice versa, you had to admit these were boutique, high quality, well-designed, German manufactured products. So there's nothing wrong about that. And then hearing why they went bankrupt was interesting to me. that was something that I heard in the interview, which made me think a lot. So it tells me, the product guy, I'm always about product. I believe in, if you have a great product, you can do it anywhere, everywhere, and forever. That's kind of my belief. That's only part of the truth. There's other obstacles in this world that can get in the way and that can actually kill you, like what happened to Kitty Hawk. And so that made me think about, I still will not change anything because that's a higher force that nobody can control. What was killing Kitty Hawk, you can hear it in the interview right after this, is it was the exchange rate between the dollar and the Deutschmark or the euro. So, and this is something nobody was ever thinking about as being a problem. The only thing that I learned from that, thinking about it, is like, I have to control my company, stay small, don't go for the big volume, don't go for big inventory, keep it small. It's like riding on a very stormy ocean with big waves. If you have a super small ship, you just go with the waves, you don't fight with the waves, whatever goes up and down. And if you have you can only survive if you have a super big ship that is kind of bigger than waves or smaller than the waves. And I am more the kind of guy that doesn't want to have that ocean giant thing. That's not me. So I'm taking something with me from that interview. Yeah, let's check out Gundolf Roy, one of the two brothers that did the legendary brand Kitty Hawk. Enjoy the interview. It's a real big pleasure to meet Gundolf Roy here in Zülpich. I'm actually playing tonight at the live Proberaum in Zülpich, and just in the backyard of that venue there is some workshop that has been used by you, and you have been producing a legendary amp brand out of Germany. Yeah, Kitty Hawk. I'm not sure if anyone internationally is familiar with Kitty Hawk, but when I grew up in the 80s, I think I started around 1980, and then of course I knew about Marshall, and then when I thought, is there anything more boutique, there was the first recommendations was kind of Mesa Boogie or Kitty Hawk. So, and the Kitty Hawk was a boutique brand out of Germany. It had a very high reputation.
Actually, it was, I think so, it was the first German amplifier, guitar amplifier, especially for rock, hard rock or so.
Right.
There were Echolette, there was Echolette at this time, but Echolette is for
Humpa music.
Yeah, exactly. And so we started first when we opened a music store. That was mid the 70s.
Right.
We sold our PA systems, like I told you.
Homemade. Like,
yes.
Did you make copies of Martin Bills?
Yes. It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
Once you have the machineries, it's no problem to produce it.
And you had kind of a wood manufacturing by that time already? Already.
In a garage or in a Scheune.
Yeah.
With 4 people.
Grunge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we sold it here in Germany to the big music shops at this time, and make some money out of it. And after a little time, we thought, hey, music store is a good idea. So why only sell wood? We just can buy guitars, sell it, or amplifiers, sell it, and make some extra money.
Right.
And at this time, that was the time when Carlos Santana
was big.
Started to get really big.
Yeah.
And he had a very, very special sound.
Yeah, I remember, especially after Abraxas album, I think he still played, I'm not totally sure about that. The modified Fenders by Randall Smith of Mesa Boogie, and then that phrase "that amp really boogies" became famous. Randall Smith of Mesa Boogie then decided to make his own amps because he bought all the Fender amps to mod them, and Fender
it was very not that easy at this time to get especially the special parts. Transformers, for example. I remember the first Mesa Boogies we got, they had Fender transformers inside.
Sure.
Fender didn't make the transformers itself. They bought it from, I think the company, Schumacher or so.
Yeah, American
company. Yeah. And they made for many of these companies, especially transformers, and Mesa Boogie, Fender, they bought the same transformers.
Right.
But nobody in Germany had any idea how to get these amps.
Yeah.
The problem is that the American small companies like Mesa Boogie or Howard Dumble at this time, they have no idea what we needed here.
Yeah.
They did not know that we need especially export transformers with 220, 240 volts
instead of 110.
Yes.
For the US.
So the first amplifiers we got from the States, they were in 170, so you need an extra transformer.
Yeah.
Which was very expensive
and heavy.
It made it just complicated. Yeah. And they, especially Mesa Boogie, when they in the beginning when they start up, and everybody know Carlos Santana played these amps, they couldn't produce enough.
Yeah.
They started in a very small garage, factory, whatever, and they didn't have the capacity to produce more.
The volume.
So in the beginning when we get the address, it was no internet, nothing. You have to get a phone. To phone call to the States was very expensive.
Yeah.
So the first time we got telephone invoices with
hundreds,
no, thousands. Deutsche Marks. 2,000, 5,000 D-Marks.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money for us,
of course,
to explain what we need.
Yeah.
And then they came via airplane to us, and we said,
"It's also expensive."
Very expensive. Yeah. They had a very complicated system at this time. You could buy an amplifier 60 watt or 100 watt. You could buy this equalizer, no equalizer, reverb, no reverb.
All the options, the different
cabinets, different speakers, and so on. That was very, very complicated, especially for musicians. But once they started to play an amplifier, and you ask them, "Hey, what do you need?" They had no idea. Do I need reverb? Do I need a graphic? So they ordered some stuff. When they get the amplifier, surprise. Yeah. So we told them, "Hey, it's very complicated for us. To change an amplifier from 60 to 100 watt or put an extra equalizer or reverb inside, we had to find another way to produce it." Especially with Howard Dumble, it was very, very complicated. I don't know, I think that he produced just himself.
Yeah, basically.
I remember when we started our first order with him, we had to make full pre-cash. Years later you can laugh about it, but at this time it was lots of money when we transferred $10,000, $50,000 to the States.
Yeah.
That was
a big thing.
That was a very big thing for us. Yeah. We asked the musician to pay at least half of that what they ordered.
Yeah.
And after 3-4 months, they asked, "Hey, what happened with my money?" And we said, "Hey, sorry, money is in the States. Our Dumble is working with it."
Yeah.
And after a half a year, they started to
get nervous.
Exactly.
But then, of course, hopefully, finally, one day the amps probably arrived here.
It was a very long way. Next step was we got some Polaroids
of the amps. It really
no,
exists.
Not the amps. It was just some boards inside, some speakers, no cabinets, nothing. And then after a year of 7 months, 8 months, we get a shipment from him.
Yeah.
and we were surprised. It was just a box, some chassis inside, no cabinets, no speakers, no transformers, and
have fun, guys. Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. At this time we bought here in Germany from the replacement parts from Fender, PV.
Right.
So when you get an old Dumble amplifier, for example, you did not know what transformer is, for example, inside, because we bought every transformer we could get
just to make
it work, to make it run.
Yeah. How much was a Dumble when you ordered it back in these days? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think they started about 3,000 D-marks at this time.
Okay, which was some serious money.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
For rock guitar players, so they couldn't pay it.
Yeah.
The only musician that could pay this money when they were rich, for example, or when they made Tanzmusik.
Yeah.
The guys that had money.
Yeah.
But the guitar players that play in a
rock band
or so, they don't have the money.
They don't have the money, right? So it was a boutique amp back in the days. So when you received all these components and you started to kind of finish the amp with the woodwork and buying speakers and whatever was needed to complete the amp, you were already kind of sourcing parts here and there.
Yeah.
And what made it to the next step?
The next step was that we didn't get any more replacement parts. Once we bought all the stuff from Fender, for example, they didn't have 100 transformers in stock.
Yeah.
They had for twin reverb maybe 2 transformers, 2 output transformers, and that was it.
Yeah, just to replace it once the Fender amp would be broken. So there's only 2 to buy.
Yeah. So the next step for us was to check out how to get transformers, especially the output transformers were very difficult to get. And here in Germany were a couple
companies
that made that was later.
That was later.
Much later.
Yeah.
At this time, the only way to get transformers was to go to industrial companies that made transformers, but they had no idea what an output transformer for
output transformer. Yeah.
So at this time, we take an output transformer from Fender, for example, rewind it, like you did for example, pickups or so.
Learn the process, what's
important.
Learn the process.
It was just not that easy because you have this iron block inside. You have to take it away and then start rewind it. And then go to the company and say, I need this transformer, and that was the only way it worked. And that was not that easy, especially output transformers. You need special iron.
Yeah. For which is kind
of the sound that make the sound especially. The power transformer, an industrial power transformer, is different to a musician transformer. We had to pay some extra money for it to learn it. And it was not that easy. So the next step for us was then to buy the machinery to make the transformers ourselves.
Okay, I mean, in the end, it's a logical progression of, okay, if I can't buy it, I have to fix it myself, and then you learn it the hard way, and then you finally founded your brand, Kitty Hawk, back then, or?
Yeah, the companies couldn't, Dumble, forget Dumble about this, he couldn't deliver anything.
Okay, because one-man show...
and that doesn't work, and he could sell more than he can produce in the States.
Yeah.
That was a problem.
Yeah.
And Mr. Boogie at this time was also very, very small.
Same problem.
Same problem. So after a while, we think, and we said, what they can do in the States, we can do ourselves.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, we almost copied an old Fender, like Mr. Boogie did it yourself, or Dumble did it. Yeah. Copied an old Fender Twin.
Look at Marshall JTM 45 is a bassman with British components.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not that difficult actually. Yeah. And so we started to do it ourselves.
Yeah. And the Kitty Hawks that I have only played 2 in my life. There's a German guitar player, Gregor Hilden, who has one. and actually a friend of mine who lives next to me in Saarbrücken, my hometown, who has also one. They have the two inputs, like there's the clean channel and the overdrive channel. You don't have like channel switching with those. Is this the early version?
That is the very early, like Mr. Boogie.
Yeah.
The Mark
like
1.
Mark 1
That's
style.
the Mark 1s. That must be in very old Kitty Hawk then, the standard or custom or something similar.
Yeah, I have to look next time with my friend.
Standard or custom.
Yeah.
I like the standard a bit more than the custom. It's more like much more like a Fender. The custom is more like a Mr. Boogie, for example.
Okay. Yeah, I like the sound of the amps really. I mean, I would say it's a hot-rodded Fender. It has the Fender DNA in a way, but it has more.
But that's only the older Kitty Hawks.
Okay, so this is what I know.
It took a little time or some years to find your own way.
Yeah, of course.
To create an
step
own
by
sound.
step.
And I think we changed after 3-4 years producing these amplifiers that were more the American style. We changed more to the
British.
European, British tone.
Yeah, a bit more, less mid-rangey, I guess.
Exactly.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like
more power, and we changed the tubes, for example, from 6L6 to EL40.
34.
34. Yeah. 34.
Yeah.
That makes the sound a little more. It's more the British sound.
Yeah, and it's. I know exactly what you're talking about because I'm myself more a British sound kind of guy, growing up on vintage Marshalls and stuff. And for me, the Fender thing always has been great. In my life as a studio musician, I had to use any kind of sound. I had a Vox, I had a Fender, I had a Marshall, and all that stuff. But when I think what's going on in Europe, I think the Marshall was maybe bigger than the US thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When you go to the US, you find a Fender combo everywhere.
Yeah.
Even in the last desert.
Fender or PV. I think in the last years PV is getting bigger.
Yeah, well, PV now finally is going down.
Okay.
I know that, but I mean, Fender is still big in the business.
It's a huge name.
Yeah. And I mean, there's the leader of guitar manufacturing also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the Stratocaster, Telecaster,
Every musician, every guitar player, bass player know these amps and the guitars or basses.
Yeah. So this is kind of the most famous.
That's the same when you came over to Europe. This Marshall amplifier. Every guitar player knows how Marshall amplifier works. You don't have to explain anything. You just put it on stage and you can start.
Yeah.
That's the easy way.
So what happened to the company Kitty Hawk over the years? So you built up from a little company and you had that niche market and a reputation for I just remember from back in the days that the reputation about Kitty Hawk was very high. People were...
Yeah, we sold a lot of amplifiers this time.
Yeah.
And we changed a little bit from the American to the European style.
Yeah.
We had a factory in Westerwald.
Okay.
Where like I told you, we produce the complete electronic parts inside the steel chassis, the wooden parts, the transformers, all these things. And we go to the fairs in Germany. We start going Musikmesse. We start going to Anaheim, to the NAMM show.
Yeah, it still exists.
Still exists.
Yeah.
And after a long time, we found an American distributor for our amplifiers, Latin percussion at this time.
Okay.
And we sold a lot of stuff. That was when we start changing the stuff, or that was the time when musicians start changing from stacks to 19-inch gear.
Ah, yeah, the rack system.
The rack system. I don't know, is it still popular?
Not at this point. What's funny, I mean, you are a little bit out of the business doing art these days. I grew up in the times when the rec got popular, like early 90s, late 80s. This is when Steve Lukather, the LA Cats were hot, and even myself had to build a rec system and stereo, and you know.
Yeah, that was very complicated.
It was very complicated.
Very, very complicated. There was just a couple of specialists like Bob Bradshaw, for example.
Yeah, who was building proper systems that worked.
Exactly, yeah. It was very complicated. I remember we were the first time with the Scorpions. They asked us for preamps, power amps, and switching gear and so. And the first time we were in the studio with Rudolf and Matthias at this time, we had so much problems to get the hum.
Yeah, ground
loops and stuff. It takes a little time to get in, and
it's complex.
It's very complex.
And this is what sometimes the musician forgets about it. You have a plug, you plug it in here, you have a plug it in here, and you expect it to work. But hey, the physics is, there's ground on this and there's ground on this. What is actually going on this ground? No? And then transformer isolation, or maybe change the ground and have a whatever star system. You have to learn. And this is something that is way too much for musicians.
Yeah.
So you need to have a proper technician that understands it. Today, people play the pedal boards and they have the same issues.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it's electronics.
It can change. Yeah. So at this time we started then building 19-inch stuff too, like different preamps. I think the idea was to make different preamps, European style, American style, mixed, whatever, different overdrives or whatever. I think we had 3 or 4 different preamps to put in a rack, different power amps. And then next step was to get the stuff cabled and switch it with just one button.
Yeah, it's not so easy. You have to understand.
You have to understand how that works.
Yeah.
And we had at this time a very, very good technician who was very fit in this digital stuff.
Yeah.
And
Microcontroller.
This we made our own programs for the switching here.
Yeah.
So we had a looper, we had just a switcher, we had a digital mixer, we had a digital graphic equalizer. I think most people didn't know this.
Very advanced technology by that time.
It was very expensive for us and it was very advanced. Our switching gear was on lots of stages. We had Rudolf and Matthias, for example, asked us, we need a pedal board on stage, but we don't want to change the channel every time. We have a roadie that is working backstage. It would be easier for us when he change it. Can we have 2 pedal boards, for example,
one for me and one for the roadie?
So we changed this instead of that. Doesn't look as MIDI is a problem. So we had a different
protocol.
Yeah.
Like MIDI is a serial protocol. It's like a train with different wagons goes one direction, and you have to create your own to be able to do that. Okay.
So we built this system, for example, and lots of guitar players use it because that was very comfortable for them. They could have 2 or 3 pedal boards on stage, for example. On big stages, you need it.
Yeah, you go there and you can switch. You go there.
You need a big light system to see which channel
you are on.
And that worked fantastic. We have a guitar player from Doropesh, Warlock, for example.
Yeah, Warlock,
Tommy Bolan, I think. Tommy Bolan was his name. I remember he had a gig once. He had two pedal boards, for example. He had a gig, and before they started rebuilding the stuff on stage, a truck drove over this pedal board completely. It was completely damaged.
Yeah.
But it still worked.
Wow.
So he had 2, but he gave one to his roadie and the other on stage.
Which looks nicer.
It still worked. They were so massive steel.
Yeah.
You could drive with a truck over it.
Nice.
It still worked.
Yeah. well, back in those days, the German engineering in general, I found, was at its peak. When you look at industry in general in Germany, the late 80s, in-house manufacturing, you had good materials, you had a very alive supply industry. Now with China, I think things are different.
Yeah, at this time, for German producers like Engel or Eugene Kettner, they grew up at this time too.
Right.
I think they had, the chance was that Marshall, for example,
could not deliver.
They could not deliver, and it take them too much time
to develop something new.
To develop something new. They still were in the stack systems.
Old school. In the last decade, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they ever build 19-inch stuff? I don't know.
They did finally, after everybody else was there, Marshall was, and that's the big problem with Marshall still up to today. They have such a big heritage. Yeah, but they are so late, and therefore the Marshall company is suffering big time. Mm-hmm. Marshall has been bought by a Marshall company that Marshall sold the brand name for lifestyle products that made boom boxes for home stereo to a Swedish company, and this Swedish company made so much money out of the lifestyle product that they bought the UK company. And see, this is how slow they are. That's their problem. Yeah. I love old Marshalls. I'm a big fan of Marshall, but also when you look back at modern Marshalls, like there is one with more channels and stuff with all the features that other companies like Eugene Kettner and you guys had 20 years ago. They came way too late.
And that was at this time our luck.
Yeah.
Especially Fender too. Fender was very slow too.
Yeah. But this is sometimes the Americans. In this respect, it's good for us.
Yeah, sure.
We can do stuff because there is a demand, and we also had the time to care about the customers because we were in contact with the musicians as the other guys too. But somehow I feel like we were like the second generation. We had all the respect for the Fenders and the Marshalls, but we were the new kids to be, hey, we have to do something better. Mm-hmm. We had this make it better energy, and in these
different. It's not even better. It's different.
It's different. That's true. But this kind of energy was driving the industry, and then years later, these big companies maybe did something in that direction too. Yeah. And history repeats. I'm not saying this officially, but a new product from Fender is doing exactly this kind of thing. I'm in the industry now for also a few decades, so you can see how things evolve.
I just remember in the late, I think that was in the mid 80s or so, when Fender recognized that there are new amplifiers on the market that sound different, that had more gain, whatever, to different channels. I think Bob Bradshaw then started to work for some years for Fender, and the first thing he changed was the design. I couldn't understand this because I love this silver look with the knobs on it. It was just typical. You could see a Fender from miles away. You just see the design and you say, that's a Fender. And he changed the design. I didn't understand it.
No. But this is...
Instead of doing a new sound or whatever, change the design. I think that is typical for the American and the English, the bigger companies. Maybe it's just because they are so huge.
They cannot make good decisions anymore. I think so too.
That was good for us.
Yeah.
So we started to produce, I think, very, very good stuff at this time. Like the MIDI mixer. Our MIDI mixer is still a very, very great unit. Nobody knows how it works. I remember when I was with Guy Marcello from Europe, he asked me, for a rack at this time. So we got different preamplifiers, different power amplifiers, and I said, hey, what type of effects are you using? So he told me he had a delay from TC. Was it TC?
Yeah, TC 2290.
TC. Yeah,
that was the big thing.
That was very popular at this time.
Yeah.
TC, lexicon reverb,
PCM
Eventide, and this stuff.
H3000.
Yeah, exactly. That was the units he had, a couple of inside staying around, and he had no idea how to cable it. So I said, just put it in. And normally you have to use it one after the other. And I said, no, that's different, we make it different. So we had a mixer that was parallel, 6 parallel channels, and you can mix the direct signal without going through the effects.
Yeah, to have a clean, no latency, whatever, best
that was
a dry signal.
And you can program it for it.
Yeah.
And that was very easy for him to create different sounds within a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think every musician had the problem. Once you program an effect unit, you have your sounds, play with it for, let's say, 2 years, and after 2 years you find, hey, there is something wrong, I need something more or so.
Yeah.
You have to take, you have to find the manual, look inside, hey, how did I do it for 2 years ago? And that makes it the mixer make it much easier. You just change the input or the output signal.
And that's what you actually want,
Yeah.
without going through the menu on the digital PCM 70.
Once you had a good sound out of it, it works.
Yeah.
And that was a very good unit, for example. And I think the best unit we ever built was our 19-inch power amplifier. Mm-hmm. We built it in 2x60 and 2x120 watts, for example. Wow. Very powerful, heavy, very powerful. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I think it's still, as I'm not very familiar, but at this time we were the only company that had completely different channels. We had 2 power transformers inside, 2
totally separate.
Totally separate.
Like block A, block B.
Exactly. Yeah. The only thing they used together was the
main switch.
No, not the main switch was also different.
Really?
The cable. It was just
okay. One in power inlet, and then you had 2.
Yeah.
Like you could.
Everything was separated. Very heavy. I think the 2x100, 120 watts was about 30 kilograms. So it was very heavy.
Yeah.
And I remember a time when it was end of the 80s, I think so. A very good friend of mine who died a couple of years ago, Dog from Manowar, called me. And he said, hey, we are looking for power amps. I've seen yours. I want to check it. And he asked me to come over to, I think they had their studios close to New York in Syracuse or so.
Okay.
Yeah, Syracuse. It was in Syracuse. It's close to New York, I think so. And he asked me, hey, take a power amp, come over so we can check it. If it works, we will take some. So I take a plane with the amp, and it was actually, he was definitely one of the best technicians I ever met in my life. Mm-hmm. He was very familiar with Hammond organs. I think he was a guitar roadie for Deep Purple. Mm-hmm. He worked with I forget the name. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But everybody, John Lord. John Lord had a problem with the organ. He called him, hey, can you come over? He was a very nice guy. So he saw the power amp at this time. He said, wow, looks good, very heavy. Transformers are huge. Mm-hmm. And then he asked me, yeah, but I don't need it in stereo. And he changed the output tubes, instead of the ER34, he put some
KT88s maybe?
No, 6550.
6550, yeah.
So he had 8 6550 inside. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think he coupled it, so we coupled the output transformers
and made it like
a monoblock block, and it worked.
Yeah,
And I remember then they go on tour after a short while. He bought 8 or 12 units, I think so, for Joey at this time. That's the bass player. And we built 3 or 4 racks for him, just with the power amps inside, a big fan in the back.
a lot of weight and a lot of heat.
And a bit of a record out of it.
Yeah.
In Hanover, somewhere in Hanover. I remember the place in Hanover. That was a very old factory or so.
I don't know. What happened to Kitty Hawk then? I mean, I see you in an art gallery now.
Yeah, the problem was the American market at this time.
Yeah.
We made a business mistake. We calculated our prices with lead and percussion on dollar base.
Yeah.
So
exchange rate problem?
Yeah, the dollar in end of, what was it, mid the 80s or some time ago, the dollar go down very within weeks.
Yeah.
And that made us bankrupt.
Yeah, there's no margin left.
No.
There is no money to make anymore. And when your business model is based on this, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And okay.
That was some money we had to learn. And so the bank said, hey, it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, this is how it goes.
It's life. So luckily, I already had some because we did silk screen and this stuff already. We had some contacts to a couple of, at this time, very popular artists already. They asked us at this time when Bank, for example, was at this time playing with jazz musicians around Germany and got music instruments and stuff from us, and he saw us doing silk screen. He said, hey, do me some silk screens. So we changed.
Yeah. And you are still alive doing that?
I'm still alive doing it. It's, like I told you, to me it's not a very huge difference. It's just that the customers buying art normally have more money than musicians.
Yeah, and that's a better job to have in this respect.
Yeah.
No? And maybe it's also, I don't know the art scene, but I think it's, you learned a lot from musicians, because somehow the artistry of musicians and the kind of people that deal in the art might be similar. I don't know, you know it better.
No, it's to me, I'm like, when we built the amplifiers, was that we were in the same position as I'm not a musician anymore.
Yeah.
And to me, people came just as a manufacturer, a craftsman or whatever. And today, to me, it's the same.
Yeah.
When an artist came to me, I don't want to explain him, hey, the blue, what you need is not the blue I will take. If he wants the blue, I give him the blue.
Yeah.
So I'm always, for him, I'm always just a craftsman. Nothing more.
You service.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't...
that makes it very comfortable for me.
Yeah, okay, it's not a role. And it's okay. For me, being a manufacturer myself now, it's a hard story to hear that thing, but I hope that I'm long enough in the industry to learn a few mistakes by seeing other people having them. Of course, I try to keep my company as small. This is what I learned. I keep my company as small as possible, so not too many people employed. I know I cannot deliver everything that people want sometimes. I do have mass production outsourced to China, so I can order, of course they want 1,000 pieces a batch, but I can scale it better, which made my financing a bit better. But I'm struggling with different issues, and I'm happy that I can listen to stories like yours, or when I was freelance with Using Kettner for 27 years, to see what was going on, you know, in the markets, in the music stores, with the businesses. You know, by heart I'm a musician and an amp designer, but I'm not a businessman. I'm self-made and I didn't learn anything, so for me it's learning by doing and watching. And of course, I have my antennas always for danger. It's like, where's the danger? And this is what you need to have.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been a really big pleasure to hear that story. Legendary amps. Legendary amps. I have to repeat that. And
Many musicians use it.
yeah, and I will get some in the live stream so we can hear it. Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, cheers. What an interesting story. I took a lot from this interview, honestly. Well, there's another guy who knows a lot about these amps from Kitty Hawk because he is a player that used his Kitty Hawk for almost 20 years, recorded all his early albums with it, and I think he sounded great with the amp. And since I know him very well, since we toured together, we played together, we spent some time together. He is a master in tone, somebody with a great taste, and a great guy to work with. And I'm saying this as a guitar player, which knows the egos of guitar players. Of course, we all have our egos, but we get along very nicely. And he has a lot to say about the Kitty Hawk amps from the German side as a musician and how, well, the history of Kitty Hawk was received for him and, well, some other guys here in Germany. Enjoy the interview with Gregor Hilden. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, it's a real big pleasure and honor again to have Gregor Hilden, the man of tone, the man of mystery with tons of great amps, guitars. And he is actually one of the guys who played a Kitty Hawk amp for quite a while. Welcome, Gregor.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me. Yeah, that's true. I was 20 years old when I got my first Kitty Hawk amp, and this was in 1983.
Wow.
And this was the time when the brothers Roy from Recklinghausen or Bochum, they imported these amps, and I checked it at a friend's place, and I was really fascinated. He had 82 Kitty Hawk standard amp, and at this time I was really into Peter Green sounds and Mike Bloomfield and Robin Ford, and when I heard this Kitty Hawk amp, I thought, wow, that's similar to the Robin Ford sound and to the even to the Peter Green sound, which is more a Fender sound. But this Kitty Hawk could do both, and this was the thing for me, and I felt in love. And
at that time, did you already know the story about the Dumble history connection? Or what was this?
I found it out.
What was the Dumble story back in these days? Today, everybody knows Dumble is the Holy Grail, but 1983, I think Dumble was not having that kind of a reputation.
The Dumble thing at that time in Germany wasn't really big. The Roy brothers from Bochum, who built the Kitty Hawk amps, they have imported original Dumble amps from Alexander Dumble at this time, and they sold it to German stores. And you could buy an original Dumble in a music store here. It slowly began at the time when people heard, Robin Ford is playing a Dumble, and David Lindley and some more people, and after a while, the connection from Kitty Hawk to Dumble did not last too long because Alexander Dumble wasn't really amused when he saw that the Roy brothers are copying really one-to-one his schematics and his amps. So then he did not send any original Dumbles anymore to Germany, and then it was over. With Dumble, and the prices are increased. But the Kitty Hawks are on the market here, and I loved that Kitty Hawk amp. I loved the standard amp because it has a really exciting lead sound, and I played the standard amp along with the Junior, which is my second favorite Kitty Hawk amp, and I played these both models. You have one?
I have one. Yeah,
you have one. That's great. I still have an old standard, and it's kind of nostalgic thing for me, and because I do not play the Kitty Hawk anymore live because it's too heavy. The standard amp has over 30 kilos. It's the same like a Fender twin reverb.
Yeah, and like a
boogie. like a Fender twin reverb, and that's
too much. It's too much.
It's too much. Yeah.
When I was at your age at that time, I had a Mesa Boogie MK2B with an electro voice speaker, the 12L, and I only had.
Which is important.
That speaker is a classic when it comes to these tones. I had to find out that this sound is too focused and too Fender-esque for me. I bought it because somebody told me this is the best amp you can buy, and I did it. And then I found out that this Mesa was. I had a MK2B, which was high gain. It was easy to play, which was a good influence for my playing style as a rock guitar player. But it never had the oomph and the Marshall sound. So I started to modify the Mesa until the moment that I found out that the Mesa is a Mesa. It's Fender-esque and will never be a Marshall. And then I sold it eventually and went on with my Marshalls and even did my own Marshall mods. But I remember how heavy that fucking combo was. 12L 200-watt speakers in a solid combo housing with tube transformer, big transformers.
Big transformers,
And it's no fun. It's like the way to the gig, especially when you play like first floor, 30 kilos. The hands are stiff after this.
But I was 20 and I doesn't mind at the time. So I put my Kitty Hawks to every gig, and I made a lot of CDs with the standard and with the juniors. All my early recordings are with Kitty Hawk amps, and I think it's part of the truth that the prices for Kitty Hawk standard amps go up because
of you.
Because I played these on my records, and the people liked the sound.
I totally get the picture. Besides yourself, besides you, who else did play Kitty Hawk in that genre of music? I mean, Kitty Hawk also was having more modern amps, and the Scorpions played some later.
Not at that time. The modern amps came out much later.
So at that time, who else was playing a Kitty Hawk? Do you have any names? Or was it just you?
It was just me and my friend here in Münster, Wolfgang Brammertz, a great player who recently died, unfortunately. He was running a studio where I recorded all my earlier CDs, and Wolfgang died a couple of months ago, which is this is very tragic. And he was playing this amp. because he got it from his guitar teacher, Peter Wiesen. He's a legend in his own right, and he connected with the Roy brothers and made a little bit profit selling us the amps. So yeah, that's the story. But nobody else in Germany
Yeah.
made it live or made it famous. Uh, when I started playing the standard amp on my first 3 or 4 CDs, the people found it out, and yeah, really the prices go up because they were not available anymore after a while. After 1983, and by end of the 83, they stopped the standard, and they still produced the junior, and but only for another year. And then the Kitty Hawk changed the whole thing. Gundolf Roy, the owner, he told me they want to go more into Marshall direction because
British,
more British, and that was the end of
and
the
for
first.
you,
it was the end of the first era of Kitty Hawk, and I tried some of these later produced juniors, which were different, and Supreme, and what else came out. I checked them briefly, but it was not my thing. And my name is really connected with the early standard and junior amps. And there's one important thing. At the same time, when the standard amp came out, another similar amp was on the market, which was the custom. It looks almost identical, but has some more knobs and more channel possibilities, options. And but this custom wasn't that good. It does not sound that good like the standard, and it was always at the repair. I don't know why, because every custom I've heard from wasn't working properly. And so if you want to try to find out, if you check out vintage Kitty Hawk amp and you want to buy an amp like this, don't take a look for the custom, just for the standard and the junior. And also there's a third amp which was produced only 20 or 30 pieces, which has really Dumble things inside, because Dumble sent them parts,
unfinished amps, right?
Unfinished things, and there's a series of Kitty Hawk amps with no name. It's just Kitty Hawk on the faceplate from this time, and this amp has really Dumble parts inside. So it has the same structure of knobs, and it looks like an silver face Dumble. It was same circuit, and and mostly a lot of original parts inside. So this is the third Kitty Hawk from that time, which is really a great amp. And some of them are rebuilt with Dumble chassis from the owners, and and these are quite expensive because only 20 or 30 exist.
Yeah. When you played the Kitty Hawk on your early records, was this like your Les Paul days or the Strat? What was the main guitar?
Okay, the Les Paul is heavily connected with my sound, of course, because on my first recording, I played these tunes like Slabuday, and that was a Les Paul with the Kitty Hawk. And I played a lot of Les Paul on my first recording, but some Strat also, some Strat leads, and but the famous tracks are the Les Paul tracks.
Paul tracks, I think it's how to describe it? It's that bluesy, bell-like, on the edge of breakup, but then it starts. It's a very tasty sound. It's
I think the main thing about my sound is that I don't use too much gain. Even on the Kitty Hawk, the possibility was much more. I could have more gain if I want, but I always try to make a Fender sound with the Kitty Hawk, but it came out a little bit more elegant on the Kitty Hawk, of course, and a little bit more exciting because the Dumble gene is also in this amp.
In there. How would you describe the difference between a traditional Fender, a hot-driven Fender, and a Kitty Hawk Dumble-esque sound? I mean, you live in both worlds, and now you play your beloved Fender.
I switched to Fender amps after playing Kitty Hawk 20 years or so. So I was really. I had a long connection with the Kitty Hawk amps, and I always loved them. But then I switched to Fender because they were lighter, and I had a nice Fender clean sound, which is not that proper on the Kitty Hawk amps. They still have some good clean sound, but not the 100% authentic Fender sound, of course. And after 20 years, I went back to Fender. I don't know why. Mike Bloomfield was my first hero, and this was pure Fender sound, and so I went back to Fender because I could get another great overdrive sound with my Occo Diablo pedal. So you're asking about the difference. The Fender is not that defined in the overdrive. Fender is a little bit more muddy, of course, in the
low end.
In the low end, yes. And I think this is one of the biggest differences. But today I don't care.
And maybe it's even fun to work with a sound that is not as perfect. At least I like it. If my sound is too easy in a way, it inspires me to form a sound that is exciting but not perfect, to make it perfect. That's part of the game for me. And maybe that's the same thing for you.
Yeah, it's the best example is Robin Ford. He's playing a Dumble amp at one of his concerts, and the next concert he's playing a Fender amp, and there is a difference. Some people are telling he sounds the same, but that's not true. He sounds different when he plays Fender amps, and I cannot say which I like the best, because it's just a little bit different, and I like it both. I like Robin Ford with an original Dumble amp. He has this focused lead sound, really exciting lead sound. And when he plays a Fender, it's a little bit different. Has not it's more authentic and more bluesy, and I love them both.
Sure. Yeah. So when it comes to the Kitty Hawk amps, the years can you define what years are the good years and when they kind of went for the next phase? So what is
Yeah.
the and is there like serial numbers connected to that? Do you know that, or I don't know? Just asking.
Yeah, it's they. I think the first standards came in 81 or 82, and in 1984, they changed to Supreme, and which I don't like that much anymore. And then so the really good years are the early 80s until the end of 83, and after 86 or 87,
they went to totally
they
different
went
direction.
to the Marshall, to the
Yeah.
black Tolex amps, and these are different.
Yeah.
Not bad, but
totally different style.
totally
Yeah.
different.
I know that they had Scorpions using it. They designed massive switching systems like the Bradshaw system, you know, which is nothing for a puristic blues player like yourself. But they went for the maybe German high-tech kind of gear, because there were these were the days. These were the days for that kind of product. Fair enough.
For music,
because at these days, people were looking for rec gear like crazy, and again, this was not available in Germany. I remember when I tried to get some stuff, Bradshaw switching systems, nobody could get them, because they were still inside the US only. And here there was nothing. What I found funny is, like in the early days, in the 80s, when I was asking the question, what was the best amp, somebody was telling me, knowing nothing at that time, Mesa Boogie. I heard Kitty Hawk, but the reputation of Kitty Hawk was not as good as Mesa Boogie, because Mesa Boogie was kind of, Carlos Santana was playing a Mark I or whatever. So even my grandma would know that Mesa Boogie was the better brand.
Of course. Yeah, it's American, and the Lukather Santana connection built the name, of course. And nobody was playing in Kitty Hawk. They are standing in the German music stores, and some hobby players they bought it, and that was it.
And that's funny when you look back at the market, like certain products, they are hot today, crazy hot today. They were not so hot back in the days when they came out. You know, we had to talk about, we both had Squier guitars back in the 80s, because the Fender ones was even shittier. I mean,
expensive, and
I remember my story when it goes back to my first Fender that I bought in Koblenz at Musik. What was it? Pro Sound, And guess the guy who sold it to me was Peter Wolf. Now he became famous with Paul Reed Smith in the US, and now doing Next guitars and whatnot. So you know, this guy sold me the shittiest Strat ever. And then I moved on for well, whatever. Hey, everybody cool. I mean, he had nothing better in the shop back in the days, because this was the only thing available for him, you know? I mean, I asked for Fender, and this is what you could get back in the 80s. And I mean, we were lucky that the Japanese created those Squier guitars. I think I paid 800 Deutschmarks for mine, or something like that, which was the price, but it was a great guitar. And now they go for even more money.
The same with me. I played the Squier, and I was happy. It was a great guitar.
So these days, we're talking about something I have here in the corner. Like, wait a minute, I show you. This is, I don't know if you follow up this kind of thing, but the other day, you know the Bad Monkey? Bad Monkey, the guy from JHS Pedals made this pedal famous, no?
Okay, yeah, I've heard in the internet about story. Somebody was pushing these pedals,
Pedals.
but I have never tried it.
It is a okay pedal, but it's not. For me, the funny thing is, he proved how a story can create a hype. No,
Yeah.
because he chose the ugliest pedal of them all, Digitech Bad Monkey, you know, and then he made a video comparing it to like the best tube screamers and everything, and made it sound as good as which it wasn't. But anyway, the hype worked, and that's something. Sometimes I think when you discover things for yourself. The hype was never intentioned. It was not intention. It's just because you are excited about something, and this drives you to get that kind of thing. And whatever people think is not important for you.
No.
And this is what always I have seen when you started to use, the vintage gear. This was like. Everybody was having pink and yellow and red guitars with weird tremolo systems.
80s,
yeah. And even myself, you know, when I bought that 61 Strat, I knew I wanted a Strat. I was not a vintage fanatic back in the days. I just wanted a great tone, and for some reason that vintage gear gave me a better tone than was. What was available. So, and I remember my first Frankfurt music trade show days. Next booth there was the guys with a double humbucker, super whammy, and you go bing, 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 and enjoy your tone. But it's like, and my guitar started to relic over the years. And, this all became a trend afterwards, but I was never thinking of any of this. I just did my thing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's crazy and funny to watch back the last 30 years of how the trends have actually changed from the wild 80s to the vintage, back to the roots kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's a good way, because I was a little bit alone in the 80s, and I felt alone with all these heavy metal, hair metal, independent, new wave, and nobody was into the blues. But I told you in the interview already that I played my Kitty Hawk live, and all the heavy metal guys came to the concert, and they couldn't believe how good that sounds. Just the Kitty Hawk, Les Paul, and no pedal. And this is for me sometimes just that's more a thing that I find interesting. People that are doing something their own way, but in a good way. Sometimes they are last, become the first, you know, like, and I mean, I wouldn't say that, because everybody is doing his thing, and these metal players, they really could play, and and they had success with his playing and with the music. Michael Voss from Mad Max at that time, he came to my concert and he loved my sound. And he told me, "Wow, what's that?" But Michael, it's a great musician, and a great player, and is in his own right. And I would not compare that. It's,
of course.
Everybody is doing his thing, and back in these days, of course, I was a little bit alone in Münster.
Talking about Münster, we played Münster a couple of times, and
Yeah.
you actually came there to the venue, which was cool. I played there with
I
Ben
loved it
Grenfeld.
with Ben Grenfeld. It was
Yeah,
a fantastic gig. It was a
yeah,
really fantastic gig, and you played great together. And I loved Ben Grenfeld
yeah,
playing. He's he's such a cool guy, and he plays naturally, and um, you never have you never can hear that he has practice, because he plays so how can I say, so naturally.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know him quite well by now because we also
yeah,
work on a record together,
yeah,
and his
great.
songwriting talents are similar. It's like he sometimes he does not know what he is doing. It's
Mhm.
just like, let's try to make this minor. Why
Yeah,
minor? Well, it's
yeah,
different, and it's a typical Ben moment, you know. So
yeah.
everybody
It's
is,
very naturally. Yeah,
yeah, and so that's funny. And this was the venue we it's a historic venue.
Joffel. Yeah,
Jofel, the bass player of Udo Lindenberg,
Stefan. Mhm.
Stefan, Steffi Stefan,
That's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, which is cool. Hey, thanks, Greg, for
Hey,
joining in, and
thank you very much, Thomas, and hope to
yeah,
see you. Hope to see you soon again
okay, yeah,
on
take care,
stage.
man. Yeah, on stage. Cheers.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Well, thanks, Gregor Hilden, for all the insights into the Kitty Hawk story, especially as a musician and as somebody who actually played that amp for almost 20 years, used it on all the records. So, yeah, it's great to hear his thoughts on the Kitty Hawk things. But on the other hand, Gregor also did some great demos on the BluGuitar Amp 1 on his channel, Greg Guitars. Enjoy the videos and see you guys next week, same place. Farewell. Cheers.